No, please share, because you
Yeah.
mentioned three things that you would want to have with you in some sort of, disruption in supply chain. So red light therapy device would be one. You said a couple more. Now, I don't know if we can talk about them on air here, but
I'll say it
uh,
like this. One of them would be Charlie, Derek, Sam. They're letters, and those letters stand for something else. But that one, out of all of them, was the most critical. But that there's enough information there for people to work out what I'm saying. But that would be one, and that because that would deliver close to 11 million oxygen molecules for every red blood cell in the body. Think about how long you can live without food. Think about how long you can live without water. Think about how long you can live without oxygen. How deeply important do you think oxygen is for the body? What do you think red light therapy does? It actually causes the body to produce its own oxygen within the cells.
and good afternoon, everyone. I know you love when I bring you the brightest minds and some of the newest tech, but again, is the newest technology new? Or is it old? We're going back in the past. I love to talk about Nikola Tesla, Marconi, Dr. Brown, and these types of brilliant minds, especially going back into the late 1800s with some of these patents that they had for electric cars and some of the therapy devices that were once at our fingertips that everybody used, and then they suddenly disappeared for 125 years. Again, this is from the past to our modern world. And Jonathan Otto is going to tell us about it today because I had a couple questions, and I know we always talk about frequency, vibration, cycles in time, history, electromagnetism, but how does all this wind back in? Repeating cycles of time, yes. The repeating cycles of civilization, of technology come and go, but why has it taken us so long to come back with the same things that we had 120 years ago that we can have at our fingertips for medicine? And again, if we come into a grid down or sort of a disruption in supply chains, I mean, what can we do to keep that in our own locales, communities, and our own homes of something benefit that's easy to use? And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So, Jonathan, I appreciate you joining me. The floor is yours.
Oh, awesome, David. What an honor. Thank you for your time. And I love the way you think about things. And I can see why so many people love and follow your work. I think that as you bring up something like you did, the research and looking at what has happened historically and why is that important, and if you look at my research, for example, 10 years ago I was a producer on a series called The Truth About Cancer, and that was really the culmination of not just decades but centuries of investigation into what was causing cancer and what could be done to prevent it and to put it in remission. And so these were the things that fascinated my mind over the last close to 20 years now. And I'm an investigative journalist. I've a filmmaker, multi-award winning filmmaker and investigative journalist, and completed multiple degrees in those subject areas. But I found myself so fascinated in finding ways to alleviate suffering because to me, it's the worst thing ever. And I think that so few people are dedicated to that are given positions to the actual solution and are willing to look at things that are uncomfortable for them to look at. And I was willing to look at everything that was so uncomfortable. So, fast forward to this moment in time, some of the world's top doctors, the people that are most famous that you'll even see on shows like Rogan or anything like that, and I could show you the text from them. They'll ask me for help on their most complicated cases, and that's been a real honor and reward to see that. And it's there's one thing that comes down to is open-mindedness and a willingness to lean into the things and to cross-reference and think critically and find connections and then take action on it. Because the things I would learn, I would then do to myself. And so it wasn't theory, it was then action. And then I would share that. And then because we have millions of people that follow us around the world, I would get data that was really important and I could prove what I was saying. And so I could move at light speed as well. But anyway, so light therapies, why are they so effective? The Nobel Prize was won in 1903 by Niels Finsen for reversing lupus vulgaris, light therapies to reverse disease over 120 years ago. Now, how did this get lost in the ether? Fast forward to 1967, then there's more discovery. And so but 1900s wasn't the first time people used light therapies. Light therapies, if you're Christian or whatever worldview you come from, many different religions come back to like a Garden of Eden. And light was the preceding factor over all things. Like light preceded everything that came after it, and so then it would make sense that all things were created to be in proximity to light. And then if you look at your skin, it's completely translucent. If I turn on a red light device here like this, and I put my hand in front of it, you'll see it go through the skin, and you'll realize, oh, my skin is translucent for a reason. And your body's filled with something called chromophores, chroma, color, phores, like a receptor site. And your body's supposed to receive light, and it needs to. And if you went out of where the light, which is what people are being encouraged to do, you would see all this degradation. Your risk for all disease would go up. So firstly, let's get back to the light, especially the sunrise and the sunset. The red tint is amazing. Sun during the day is also amazing. Can we be in it all day? No, that even animals know to go take shade. But back to nature is fascinating. But David, how prolific is it really? And is it that good? Because there's only so much energy I have, so much finances I have. Is it worth my time, effort, energy? And so, and if I had only maybe like one, two, three things that I was deciding I was to do, would red light be one of them? And I would say, in many cases, if there was one single thing you were doing, it'd be red light, and here's why. Tell me what therapy you could possibly do, and you would be in front of it for 3 minutes, and your eyesight would improve by 17% just after one session, right then, in the moment. That
I
I've
can't think of
never,
any. I can't think
yeah,
of any. And if it is, it would have been suppressed at this point, because the road we are on right now, with traditionally what's offered to us to, do different things with our bodies, all seems to this perpetual business model where nothing's
yeah,
ever fixed. It's always kicked down the road with another solution that requires you to buy more into the system and continue into the system. Because I tell you, whenever you're trying to get advice, what's the main number one thing? They try to pull you right back into the same system of the textbooks that have been there. They never allow you, or they don't want you to, I should say, go on the
mm,
periphery and look for solutions. And I think that's where almost all the solutions are. I mean, if you're
yeah,
going to be in a perpetual business model and will milked and extracted all the way until you're passing, that's not a system I want to be in. I actually want to be somewhere that can help me with what I need if I have a problem in one of the, in the body somewhere. And,
yeah.
sunlight's great. I have a farm out here. So I was out in the sun a good couple hours yesterday, and try to work at sunset and sunrise. And I know those benefits, especially staring into the sun. If you, in the morning sun, when it's real gentle, when you're watching that sun come up for 10, 15 minutes, I mean, looking directly into the sun before it comes blinding, I don't know, it resets some rhythms in the body. And I know you
Yep.
can speak much better to that than I. But I really believe, and also, when you're going to disinfect something, putting it out into the sun and the sunlight. So, if we're winding back to all these benefits that have been talked about for thousands of years of sun gazing and sun bathing and disinfection and these types of things. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember in the early 1920s, they would take patients out of the hospital and put them on the hospital roof so they could get exposed to the sun. But then that has all been wiped out too, where we sit in these little dark rooms, and that's not too helpful either. So,
Mm.
just from my, I should say, novice look at how sun can be utilized in sort of healing our bodies, or, bringing them to a better performance level. There must be something there, because if the ancients were doing it and this
Yeah.
technology was hidden, must be hidden for a reason, because they got us a completely different system for the last 100 and some years on petrochemicals.
You got it, man. Exactly. Exactly. So, David, when you see how you're probably familiar with mitochondria to a degree.
Man,
Mitochondria. Yeah, yeah. And
powerhouse of the body.
you got it. You got it. And they're not in red blood cells, they're in organ cells. And there are thousands per cell. And they count for about 25% of the cell. They surround the nucleus. That's starting to give you indication of how important they are. And they're organelles. They're stimulated by light. They're best stimulated by light. There are, like, if there was one supplement that may be better than any other, it would be tributyrin for the mitochondria. But light, and the combination with light. But like, we're seeing people have all kinds of amazing processes happen in their body, and it's heavily studied. People undergo something called mitophagy, where the mitochondria that are diseased, that are senescent, they actually continue to poison the rest of the mitochondria, and so you wonder why your body's not working because your cells aren't working. Your cells aren't working because the mitochondria is not providing the energy. That's generally where the problem is stemming from. and and there's something called the mitochondrial stem cell connection. Not many people are talking about it. It's very important because your stem cells that are generating in your body and maturing are dependent upon the mitochondria in the stem cells, and that is so cool to understand because then if the body's not going, it's kind of like having a car and not having gas in it and saying, I don't know why it's not driving. And you're going to the mechanic to mechanic, and they're like, well, you know what? We could paint the bonnet. You know what? I think that your tires have issues. The tires look fine. Okay, well, let's switch them out. Okay, that didn't seem to work. And you're just going on all these exteriors, but it needs the fuel to run. And this is the game changer, David. And then you think about, for example, there is one set of cells, and they're in the cerebellum that have hundreds of thousands of mitochondria per cell, and it's in the cerebellum in the brain. Look at the proximity where the eyes are. See the straight shot here, David, from your eyes through to the cerebellum. There's a reason for that. These are solar panels, and the whole body's a solar panel, and your eyes are included. And I want to prove what I'm saying in terms of like how prolific this really is and how quickly people can see changes, even though I'm not making claims and saying, well, you should expect quick changes. You should actually expect slow changes. But if you get a quick change, then be grateful to God because you are blessed. And the people in this study were blessed. Do you mind if I share, or would you like me to just reference it?
No, please share, because you've
Yeah.
mentioned three things that you would want to have with you in some sort of, disruption in supply chain. So red light therapy device would be one. You said a couple more. Now, I don't know if we can talk about them on air here, but
I'll say it like this. One of them would be Charlie, Derek, Sam. They're letters, and those letters stand for something else. But that one, out of all of them, was the most critical. And I talked to the doctor that was behind those cases, and I've done that interview. His last name is Kalka. But there's enough information there for people to work out what I'm saying. But that would be one. And that because that would deliver close to 11 million oxygen molecules for every red blood cell in the body. Think about how long you can live without food. Think about how long you can live without water. Think about how long you can live without oxygen. How deeply important do you think oxygen is for the body? What do you think red light therapy does? It actually causes the body to produce its own oxygen within the cells called reactive oxygen species, including singlet oxygen. What do you think that does to cancer cells? All that, it's called apoptosis, programmed cell death. Reactive oxygen species will do it. Your body will produce it of its own accord when stimulated at certain wavelengths of especially red. Red and near infrared within the optical range. The other one would be of three blanket, I would say like high diet, a high density nutrient based diet based on whole foods, and as natural and even as plant based and as raw as possible. But people have all different philosophies and do whatever. And obviously, you need to make sure you've got balance and all that kind of thing. So I'm not saying you've got to do this or that diet, but think about like if you're thinking about light, what is photoactive? Plants are. So the more you're eating plants that are photosynthesis, they go through photosynthesis. They actually have that same process in your body when stimulated by light. So think about combining light and like turmeric, curcumin, berberine. They're heavily proven quercetin as photosensitizers. They'll actually enhance the absorption of light into the cells, including into tumor cells. So it's really cool. You have to like allow my screen share if you don't mind, David.
yeah, that's provided you're giving it light to be absorbed. So a lot of us live, in this environment where you're in a home the whole time, you're in an office, or you were if you're not working from home. But even if you're working from home, you're still in a room and not really exposed to light or given an extra source to give you light, as in red light therapy. My whole thing was, what's the power requirement for it, and can it be recharged through traditional means of battery backups, solar panels, solar generators, this sort of thing?
Check this out. This is an in vitro anti-breast cancer study through autophagy, and this is looking at anti-proliferation. So one thing you want to do is stop that from growing, right? Well, this was in both negative, non-negative and triple negative, non-triple negative and triple negative breast cancer origin cell lines. And it's been shown by MTT assay that 24 hours post-exposure point out of the tested wavelengths, which you could see is 615, 630, 616, 730. People probably don't know what that means. I'll explain that.
Well,
The
those are
different
nanometers. Yeah, that's a white light wavelength. So if you have a like an LED grow light inside your house, like I do to grow plants and lettuces and different things, you're gonna ping your nanometer wavelength on the optimal absorption for your plant that's in your tray when you're growing it. So they come in all the different wavelengths, and then they change from the red to the blue to the green depending on how you're going on the spectrum there.
You got it. You got it. You understand it. And so 660 would be actually, interestingly enough, because I'm going to focus on that, is the peak of the red. But all of those wavelengths are critical and great for various things. But the one that was the best, let's have a look at it. It was shown that at 24 hours post exposure, so meaning 24 hours ago, they put this light on it, and then now 24 hours later, they're testing the cell lines to see what happened to it. And here it says only LED red light with wavelength 660 nanometers possessed anti-proliferative effects against both cell lines with what? 40% reduction of cell viability. The morphology of LED 660 nanometer irradiated cells was found flattened with enlarged cell size, typical characteristic of cell senescent, which means the cells were dying. How cool is that? All right, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
sacred numerology in there, the 660 too. If you're looking at 3, 6, and 9, anyway, you look at that, you're starting to get into these numbers that keep repeating as the construct of our, well, physical reality around us, or physical manifestations around us.
What about lung cancer? Inoperable lung cancer, unresectable, meaning they cannot operating on that because it'll kill you. So like, do no harm. They can't even legally do that to you if they know they're going to do a therapy that killed you. Well, let's have a look at this. So PDT, which is photodynamic therapy, photo light dynamic, meaning that they're using a photosensitive agent like methylene blue, like curcumin, like berberine. There's natural chlorophyll is one. All plants, to a degree, are photosensitive, but then some have proven to be more so. PDT proved an alternative for palliative chemotherapy or radiotherapy in unresectable lung cancer, as it achieved an overall response of nearly 87% and improved patient quality of life. And there's the clinical study there. And there you see overall response of nearly 87% improved patient quality of life. A bone cancer, you'd think that there was no hope for that. Well, guess what? Near infrared will penetrate the bones, increase bone density, and which is really important because if as people get older, that's the biggest risk they face with brittle bones, falling, breaking something. And in this case, it's generating reactive oxygen species. I talked about that through photodynamic therapy. And it is an effective treatment. This was from this clinical study. This is an effective treatment for bone cancer, especially with the near infrared. And there you see it, effective. Okay, well, that's important. And it's safe. Here's a great one. 413 participants. This is a European study. This is published in the Lancet Oncology. Look at it. Found that half of the patients, 49%, this is a 2-year study, 413 participants, 10 control centers in Europe, funded by Steba Biotech. And they used VTP, which is vascular photodynamic therapy, where they're putting, in this case, they're putting a laser over, which is a red light laser, near infrared, and they're putting it over the prostate, and they're using it as a photosensitizer as well, which in this case, they use the deep sea bacteria. Pretty interesting. Went into complete remission. 49% went into complete remission compared to what? 13.5% in the control group. So 4 times greater likelihood. This is even when people were doing conventional therapies. So people, when you talk to that loved one, they don't want to do any natural therapies and they want to just do whatever their doctor says. Well, just beg them, hey, look, based on this study and other studies like it, it's possible that you could have a 4 times greater likelihood. 4 times, 400%, 13.5%. Would you have wanted to be in that control group in that study? I would want it to be in the target group that had the treatment.
How was that alleviated, or how were the symptoms alleviated by using a red light therapy exactly? What was it targeting that either opened or closed some sort of function in the body that was causing that?
Yeah, arguably part of it would be again with this reactive oxygen species that they're like if you look at the studies on stroke and like the brain cells, they're need like you see all the mitochondria cell viability, everything is increasing, so the energy production of the cells, now they can perform their tasks. And that arguably a big part of these problems is oxygen deprivation within the cells. And so once the cells get what they need, then functionality comes back. And that's basically what you'll find when you read all these studies. So yeah, that would be the best way to answer that in a nutshell. But like, so people can understand what we're talking about when you say different wavelengths. These are some examples of some critical wavelengths. All wavelengths are great, especially in the optical range from 600 to 1060. But like, you kind of, based on the breast cancer study I showed you, you kind of have to go with the ones that have been proven, because you don't want to be the first person to test, because you don't know, what it's going to do. It's not going to be bad. It's just like which one's going to be most effective. But you could see where it lands. The reason why that worked for breast cancer is landing in the right region, on the cusp of the subcutaneous tissue, the muscle. And whereas 480 is going to do a lot for your dermis and your epidermis and the skin and the bacteria, the circadian rhythm. It's constant. It's not the same as the faulty blue lights that are breaking people's, stuffing up everything and messing up people's eyes, and because it's constant. Same like sun during the day is a lot of blue light. Rainbows have blue light, so God made it. It's not what people think it is. There's some myths concerning it, but again, you can like for example with our devices, you can turn it off if you don't want it. But the studies on it are amazing. It works better than any other wavelength for certain things, skin related, especially skin rejuvenation. Subcutaneous tissue, like you see 630 is getting through the dermis, and then 660 is starting to touch on the sub-Q, and then you've got muscle bone interior tissues from 810 up to 1060. All these wavelengths are proven to do this, and then you look at clinical studies here where weight loss, it's being used instead of liposuction right now. For all the women watching this and they're struggling with thyroid conditions, there's so much hope for you based on clinical studies that are a breakthrough, that you can expect a dramatic reduction even in a short period of time in the levothyroxine thyroid hormone that you're taking, because it's causing the mitochondria within the thyroid cells are causing the body then to produce, in this case, the cells to produce the thyroid hormones that they need, and it's causing the detoxification of the cells, because cells need energy to perform detoxification and to get rid of these halogens and the bromine and the fluoride out of these, and even the metals out of the thyroid gland. But look at this: weight loss, fat burning, cellulite reduction, metabolism, all different wavelengths that are proven to perform these functions.
That all comes back to metabolism then. So at that base layer
Yep.
there of metabolism, that would, work its way up the chain and into all those three things that are above there with the cellulite reduction, the fat burning, and the weight loss, which is the top goal there, I guess. So the fat burning and the cellulite, but
Yeah.
walking on a treadmill versus just getting your metabolism up to running again would be, yeah, that makes perfect sense there. That
You really caught on to that. I'm glad you did. Yeah, because you've got people like Dr. Thomas Seyfried explaining cancer is a metabolic disease. And so, we talked about reactive oxygen species, all this, but the metabolism is key factor. And if you can have your metabolism working properly, then weight loss becomes easy. But arguably, the cancer issues can resolve themselves through an adequately functioning and optimally functioning metabolism for an individual. Anti-aging, acne, scars, rosacea. Look at the wavelengths that are working for these conditions: hair growth, sun
Oh yeah,
damage,
can you go
wrinkle,
back to the
fine lines.
rosacea one? Because that was one of
Yeah.
my questions. Does this? I saw the penetration there, depths into the body at the organs and the bone level. So like leaky gut and histamine intolerance. That's that rosacea there.
These are autoimmune related, rosacea, and it's interesting that like that would be an example. Rosacea, lupus would be examples, SLE, where you'd say, well, be careful because this your skin is sensitive. So that they would be the one group of people that people with epilepsy. But these are the things that you'd say be careful. But if you look at the studies are amazing on these conditions. So people were made for light. And then you'd say, well, one, like, what's the difference between getting out of the sunlight and this? But you can see the results. The results that we're showing is showing exactly the critical aspect is irradiance, the amount of power that you're getting. So if you're close to a device like 3 inches away or even up against it, an inch away, you are going to see dramatic benefits in short periods of time. And it's enhancing what you can achieve even from the sun. And it's also because we're using all the right wavelengths, 9 different wavelengths in our devices, which is cool because most devices will only have 2 wavelengths. Hair growth, sun damage, wrinkles, fine lines, droopy eyelids, under eye circles, broken capillaries. Who wouldn't want that? So you could take creams for all these things. You could take all these expensive things you have to keep reordering. You could just put light on your face and let it clear different organs as well, because your liver function is going to show up on your face. Your colon function is going to show up in your face. So it's called face mapping. So you can part of the reason why these are getting corrected is because organ health is getting corrected, but also the skin itself is being affected. Pain relief, wound healing, autophagy, oral health. Not all wavelengths are proven for all things. It's possible that all of them are working to a degree, but I can just show you what the studies say on each of these, and then that's why I'm like kind of singling them out of what's proven versus what I think would work. Muscle building, athletic performance, post-recovery workout, mental stamina, cognitive performance, all proven to work at those wavelengths. Asthma, depression, anxiety, tinnitus. Some of them were showing a complete remission for 3 months on tinnitus. People are taking their life for tinnitus because of the ringing. They cannot continue anymore. Why was it only effective for 3 months? Because you're not supposed to only be exposed to light every 3 months. But even if you did that, you would basically keep offsetting it. So you would kind of stay out of it by doing it every 3 months. But it wouldn't be complete. 3 times a week would be ideal, or even you could do it daily with light therapies. But the thing is, you're not just trying to get rid of a ring in your ear. You're trying to have optimal cell health so you can live long, feel great, be happy. People will give everything they have for happiness. You need your cells to be happy to be happy. Arthritis, multiple sclerosis, stem cell regeneration. Think about that. Parkinson's disease. If you could regenerate your stem cells, how much do people spend on these things? I've spent $150,000 on stem cells for family members that I just didn't think there was any other solution. Often they didn't work. You got to change the environment. You can't just keep throwing more in the environment. Any farmer would know that throwing more seeds in the ground if the other seeds weren't growing is not the thing to do. It's to change the environment, give it the light, and it's funny that it has that parallel and the nutrients that it needs, and then watch what happens. Hypertension, liver function, which is a big part of the cancer issue, is all to do with liver function, as we saw the breast cancer study. 660, eye health, genital and other simplexes, cold sore herpes, fertility and sperm mobility. Look, for people that are infertile, I can't even tell you. Those studies are almost, you can hardly even believe them, how they work with this athenozoospermia, acne, circadian rhythm, skin rejuvenation, wound healing, and autophagy. So I'll put it back over to you. And
Yeah, circadian rhythm one's a big one too, because so many people are sleep deprived in today's world. I don't know if it's all the blue light screens we have around us, or if it's just so many things to do and people, focusing on their phones or whatnot before they go to bed. But, everybody, it seems that another one major thing happening right now is sleep deprivation across all the entire world, where people just aren't sleeping correct. Now, I can go off on and say, it's an electromagnetic change. Our sun is stepping down and Earth's magnetic field is declining 5% per decade. And perhaps that's it, because our lobes of our brain are electrically connected together. So maybe a disruption or a change in the field state of how the process is interpreted in the brain might have something to do with the sleeping. Otherwise, I can only put it to externalities in your close proximity here of things that you stay awake too late, the foods that we're eating, the caffeines, the sugars, all these kind of things that would push that circadian rhythm completely off. And then the daylight savings time change doesn't help either, flipping it an hour every year, a couple times a year. That really whacks people a lot. Even a single hour. And I just got back from Asia, spent 2 months in Asia, just got back last week. It's a 12-hour time difference. Okay, that's a little bit different than a 1 hour, but I got to experience the time change here. And that 1 hour seemed to wreck a lot of people.
wow.
More than you could possibly imagine. 1 hour, but the circadian rhythm is completely thrown off.
True. And when you do that, the best thing to do is get out into the sun. Get out into the sun for like a longer period of time, and get in front of a red light therapy device, and you'll see that correct really quickly when you're changing time zones, when you're traveling. Do the red light. It's funny, the one that's proven most for circadian rhythm is blue light. Super cool. Especially when done in the morning, right? So these are things that are so powerful to know. And I can even show you a little bit
Yeah, I
of
saw
like
something. I was peeking over your shoulder there, and I saw that in the background. My eyes keep moving back over there. Can we
oh yeah, exactly.
peek under the
Exactly.
hood here, for
Oh
a
yeah,
better
it's
term?
just kind of understanding um what a device looks like. And what you have here is something pretty unique in that you have the ability to control so much there. And so here, this is what it looks like to see night and wavelengths. You can't see near infrared, but the fact that all these lights are lit shows you that near infrared is also coming through every single bulb, because they're dual LEDs, which is super unique. It's not common. And we just went above and beyond. We did something where we used 42 mil chips, which are the highest, most advanced. So at 3 inches, which is about this far, you've got 205 milliwatts per centimeter squared of power delivered. And because of that, that's why the results are so much greater. And that's why if you got on a radiance meter and put it into this, held it outside in the sun, you'd see it's so much less. And this is why you're getting such results in short periods of time. Yeah, all 9 different wavelengths, which you can control. But a lot of people, like, they just want to say, well, like, I have no idea what to do. So you just go to, like, you choose the different settings and notice how you can see the effect of the dual LEDs because you saw the blue ones go away now. But you could control it in any way you wanted. If you learnt something new, and there's muscle, there's uh, skin, you're going to see it change to blue because and the orange at the 590. And so, or you could go to put everything on in mode and put all. But then you could say, well, look, I'm gonna go to each of these wavelengths here. I'm gonna hit edit, and I want to take the blue out. And so you could do that. And so you have that functionality there if you want to do all the wavelengths but blue before you go to sleep, as an example. But this gives you the ability to get in front of that, have that cover all your critical organs. And people ask about things like EMFs, because everyone thinks the LEDs are bad because they think about the ones that are in their homes. But you won't find, but like an example would be EMFs. Here's an EMF reader. Okay, I'm going to come back over to my computer. Let's see what this looks like.
Well, that thing will ping off for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Hey, I
So,
see myself. Hello, everybody.
oh yeah, there we go. So here you've got, there we go. We're we're a little dangerous over here. Okay, let's go over here. Okay. Well, Jonathan, you're a magician. You just turn it off. Well, let's turn it on.
Oh, still reading nothing.
Yep. Yeah. So you don't have any issues with EMF. And
So
that's
when you're
so
using this, how you can put that? Would you put it on top of you, or actually leave it vertical like that and get next to it, or lean your back up against not it exactly touching it, but you would center your body around that in different ways.
yes, exactly. Okay, so here you've got examples of like a wall pulley kit. So then you would, or door, sorry. So you'd put that, hook that on your door, and then you could like use the pulley to, and it locks in, super safe. Here we go.
To the position of the body that you needed, whether it be legs or
Yeah,
organs
so you
or
could lower it
face or
down.
something.
You got it. So it's pretty cool, and then it won't take up any space in your home. So like all the devices come with that as a free gift, as an example. But then there's a package as well that comes with a stand that you can lay this flat if you want and lie under it, or you could put it upright, and you could maneuver it. And so that's an example where you can use the stands and that type of thing. So it's but to answer your other question, so like 30 minutes a day is amazing. If you got the time for it, that's great. If you've got enough time for 2 minutes a day, then do 2 minutes a day. Do 5 minutes a day, do whatever. But a lot of people can justify doing 20, 30 minutes a day or 12 minutes 3 times a week. That would be where I'd say like that's like the best of both worlds, where it's like least amount of time if that's an issue.
So, Jonathan, I appreciate you joining. And please remember that myredlight.com, use the code ADAPT. Thank you for showing me and demonstrating the light there. That was really interesting because myself being an indoor grower of vegetables and I test different machinery for indoor vertical ag, I'm a fan of what you got there. That's really very interesting. And the jewel array there. And I noticed like on your blue light, it was maybe a 10% blend inside the others. It wasn't, nothing's equidistant and equal within that on ratios. I see you had far less blue light wavelength than every other thing there too, where, depending on the species of vegetable we're trying to grow, we try to tweak it at 100% on the panels and maybe add in a little bit. Yeah, I'm fascinated by what I saw there on your panel.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Exactly. Tiny fraction there of the blue because it's enough, and that's what you need it for. And then 590 has less as well, but then an equal amount in all the red at the 600s, the 800s, and the 1060, so that you have all those wavelengths. But the cool thing is when you think about the doubling effect, if you're not using dual LEDs, then everything doubles. So it's like where you've got like a double the amount of the near infrared, double amount of the red, because two frequencies are coming out, and then you're getting it in all the critical areas. Anyway, thanks for having me on. And yeah, myredlight.com, you can watch more of the trainings, watch more, or just kind of say, look, I'm ready, I want to make this decision, I encourage you, jump on that, make that decision. Be aware of as well, there's a huge demand for what we're doing, and everything is hand tested and things like this. Like we're testing irradiance and all these different things to make sure that, you know, the depth of penetration is what it is, and we stand by that. When that's why we give the 3-year warranty and all of that. So we do have the wait times, they're listed on the page. It's several weeks there, and so you'll see that. Just be aware of that. But get your place front of the queue. These are super unique. They're really the most sought after devices, and so it's going to be amazing and life changing. And I'm just really excited for the benefits you'll get.